Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Wynonna Earp. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. We actually kind of have that very, sad opening, because it's this montage of Wynonna just waking up, killing demons, going back to sleep, drinking, so on and so forth, keeping up this repeated cycle. And it's just sadder just because you could tell how she's saying why she's doing this. Oh, this is for my family. This is to protect all the people I care about. But it doesn't matter whatever the reason may be, whether it is what Waverly says later on, oh, you just like it, you just become too attached to it. But it's you kind of have to I think maybe in Wynonna's mind, it's I have to, because if I don't stop any demon coming after us, we're dead. Because I guess it's typically Wynonna doesn't always go on the full offensive. It's usually on the defensive. So it's usually she only goes hunting when it comes to things coming after them. It's never usually she's never really been on a hunt until this season. Obviously, on some cases when they were trying to get information, sure, but it's never to this extent before. This is on a whole nother level. But for Wynonna, it's she's trying to protect everyone. It's because if she lets one of these demons go, who's to say that they won't become an issue later on and lead to, one of her friends or family getting hurt. To be fair, maybe that's just her justification for everything. We don't know. But I thought that was so interesting. And obviously, she wakes up and she's oh, a peacemaker's going. But the moment Nicole and Waverly are sitting there, I'm they took it from you, and it's we want you to know before anything that we love you very much, and this isn't an attack. And she's no, it's worse. It's an intervention, and they're calling her out for what she's doing. It's all you've been doing is killing demons and stuff like that. And it's yes, I'm protecting everyone by doing so. But like I said, Waverly says what if you actually just kind of like it? And Wynonna took that as an offense, because she even says later on, it's my sister looks at me the same way as our abusive asshole dad. So I think for hearing that coming from out of any, especially for Wynonna, I think she would expect Waverly to understand more so than anybody, and for Waverly to kind of, in her mind, turn on her like that, because it's obviously Doc loves you, so it is a situation of not even he's turned against you, but it's it basically is the whole thing of once you shot Hope in the back, you just haven't been the same. You just kind of been spiraling ever since. So she kind of leaves calling Waverly a sanctimonious asshole and bounces. Obviously, Rachel follows her, and it's oh, I want, and Rachel says oh, I want you to train me, and it's I don't, you know what you're asking for. She's I want you to teach me to be like you, and even Wynonna's oof. It's even where Wynonna, because Wynonna would never want anyone to be like her, because yes, Wynonna can laugh and stuff a lot about that, but Wynonna internalizes a lot of stuff, because I think it's her, obviously she's very quick-witted and she makes these, but it's all to kind of hide the pain that she's keeping buried deep inside. Obviously a lot more of it's kind of slipped away, as we can see because we see that time and time again, that's how she kind of deals with her sorrow sometimes. It's just drowning in alcohol. So, right, because that's more so what it was, because it's you've become went from, I hope I'd have a few more years before you went from fun drunk to alcoholic. And it's that's what she was specifically referencing to their dad, Ward. But Wynonna doesn't really Wynonna. It's oh no, what you want to do is be in a skimpy outfit and then wait for the demons to kind of get lured to you and stuff like that, because you want to kind of appear helpless. Then you draw them in, and you kill them. And she's I get what Rachel's I get what you're trying to do. It's do you really? It's and it was interesting where she was because Rachel was you guys are my family, so I want to be able to protect myself, protect you guys too. But it's you don't, no, we're not. And don't count that as a bad thing. It's you don't want to be an Earp. A Gibson? Fine, that's awesome. You want to be a Gibson. No one wants to be an Earp, because Earps always end up alone. Because sadly, the Earps, obviously they've been so cursed for so long, but also it's just when you look back on retrospect, a lot of Earps things end well for them. Wynonna's the only one that's come out ahead, and even then, being an Earp comes at a huge cost. It's and you will end up alone, so don't ever want to be an Earp, because being an Earp comes with a heavy burden. I mean, hell, she had to send her own daughter away to make sure that didn't happen, but who's to say the way things shake out that won't be the end result, sadly, So we'll ultimately have to wait and see kind of But I just thought that was just kind of an interesting aspect in that regard. But obviously, Waverly and Doc meet up about the book. And obviously, I thought was so interesting the conversation they were having. Because obviously for Waverly, it's like, I took this book because I thought like, hey, all of you guys are a big part of my life. So I thought maybe this book would have some answers about everything. And even Wynonna, because obviously she's a big part of my life. But it's like, it's blank. Why would the Guardian give us a book we can't read? And it's like, well, Doc is like, place is full of deception. So, but what was interesting though is like for Waverly, she regrets not sitting on the throne because she's like, being on the throne, you know, what it means to be an angel means all your worldly desires and concerns, like my feelings about everything and everyone, drifted away. And now she wonders if that was the right thing to do. But Doc is saying like, oh, that sounds like hell. But for Waverly, she says that sounds like heaven. And even Doc's like, wait, what? Like forgetting like basically completely losing her human attachment, you know? And it's like, because, I mean, Doc has literally been to hell. Like, he, in the world where Wynonna didn't exist and everyone kind of, you know, Doc and Dolls died, for example, like, he went to hell in that world, and it scared the crap out of him at, all throughout season 3 because of that. And so, I think an interesting... So he understands hell more than anybody, like being all alone, but Waverly kind of looked at it as like, oh, it's a good thing because once again, I think it's that whole aspect of the human condition of you can't have like kind of love without grief and pain. So it's like you kind of get so drowned out in one, you kind of forget about the other. Like, yeah, there's all this pain and stuff, and like there's just you don't have to have these worries and stuff like that. You don't have to be worried or concerned or hurt. Or be in pain because someone your attachment to people, but it's like obviously without that, because like obviously I feel like obviously anyone of the group, I'd say like Waverly has the biggest heart, so I think it's interesting her more so than anyone kind of feeling like that, especially considering you're about to get married. You're kind of saying that too. That's kind of a scary thought. But obviously you have like Dallas and Remy showing up. And obviously BBD's been cracking down, ended up stealing all their food. And they're like, well, we'll find something else. So we'll just leave the girl. Obviously Waverly pulls out Peacemaker. Doesn't work and is like, run. So BBD shows up, takes them all down. It's like, what are they up to? We'll get to that soon enough. Waverly runs through the fog, ends up in a cabin, and lo and behold, who's there? Jolene. It's like, no, Wynonna shot you. It's like, well, the moment Bullshar was killed, I was released from his vines, but the fog has been coming out ever since you opened the door to the garden, so I've been kind of trapped here. So I thought that was an interesting development, having Jolene back like that. And obviously, she's making a lot of... It's hard to say how much of what she said was complete and utter BS and how much was just her telling the truth, or at the very least her stretching or manipulating the truth to get what she wanted out of Waverly, because she's like, oh, I don't hate you anymore. And it's like, Jolene, always the liar. Even saying the scratch mark, the tally marks, it's like, oh, that's not how long I was here. Because even I was like, yeah, because the fog's been coming out of the garden for like 18 months now, so it's like I feel like it'd be a lot more days there. Not unless it's saying like not unless it's not really saying like, oh, she was immediately out here after the fog. And maybe it took a while for the fog. Well, it seems like the fog started coming out immediately, but maybe she was only trapped recently. But even then, the way she was talking, it seems like she's been there the entire time since the fog started rolling out. So it's interesting that I was like, the tally marks don't seem big enough. And it's like, oh no, these tally marks are for everyone that Wynonna's ever had to kill for you, to protect you or in your name. And we know, yes, some of them were demons, but some of them weren't, you know? So I was like, damn, that's what, like, I could never tell what she was going for, especially when she was saying like, oh, angel and demons, not that far apart, because demons are just fallen angels. I mean, if you want to get specific about it, let's not forget who leader of all demons are. It's Lucifer, and he's a fallen angel. So maybe they're drawing some parallel in that. I don't know. That's what I was saying. I couldn't tell whether she was just messing with Waverly, or it seems like there might be some truth to it, but we still don't know what the whole deal with that is. Maybe that's also why Waverly's book was blank, because obviously she found the books in the garden, but It makes you wonder what would have happened if she had taken anyone else's book, or maybe it was all kind of destined that she was going to take her own book. Maybe that was the whole point. Maybe all the other books were BS. It was specifically her own book she was meant to. I don't know. It might be that taking her book might come back in a sense of it might be something that's necessary to stop her. We'll get to that later, but at one point, like, Jolene's pushing her, and even to one point, like, cuts open, like, her bag and pulls out a black feather, and it's like interesting because let's not forget Julian had white wings. I wonder on some level, like, is it a byproduct of her sitting on a throne, like it changed something in her? Maybe it's specifically having sat on a throne and then leaving the garden shifted her like that. You know, because maybe by going to the garden, sitting on the throne, but not accepting it, her wings turn black because it's kind of like a Lucifer thing. I mean, I wonder is that kind of, well, I was wondering if that's technically where they would kind of be going with this, whether she's kind of supposed to be like the Lucifer, like whether they're kind of making her the Lucifer of this situation. Is that kind of what that's supposed to represent? Maybe, maybe not. Because that's an angle to this whole angel thing they haven't really touched on and all. So I was curious, like, was that potentially an angle they're going for? If not, at the very least, like Lucifer-like in the sense that she kind of turned down the throne and left the garden, and that kind of shifted her from pure angelic angel to just fallen angel / demon. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting development. And obviously, Jolene wants her to release that side of things. Obviously, on the other side, obviously, you know, Wynonna and Rachel had come across Remy, and it's like, oh, and like, you know, Rachel wants to patch him up, and it's like, you know, that's a demon, right? Yeah, but he's also named Remy, and he's the bass player of a Halsey tribute band. I was like, oh, and it's so interesting that Rachel knows that too. Once again, I think it's so interesting that like that Eamon nor Wynonna really knows the demon, like, because Eamon didn't remember Remy's name, and obviously Wynonna's just like, oh, he's a demon, but it's like even Rachel being like, no, he's a demon named Remy, and he does, you know, the fact that she knows that much already, and it's like, well, Waverly's inside of the fog, Doc and Dallas were taken by BD, so and that's the thing, like, so much is happening all at once, and it's crazy. Because obviously we see Cleo's trying to get out of town, which I was surprised by. I'm like, I thought you were going to be all hell-bent on killing Wynonna. It seemed like, at the very least, I interpret like, oh, you want to get your revenge. But I guess maybe she was like, well, with everything going on in town, Wynonna said, like, either she was going to leave and then come back and do that, or maybe it's just kind of like, you know what, I decided it's not worth it. I'm going to listen to what Doc said, just forge my own destiny, so I'm going to leave. Maybe she figured, this town will eventually kill Wynonna, so who cares? So she was trying to bounce. Obviously fed an entire bus of old people to her reapers. Now, I don't know if it's others or just Billy. Who knows? Because the only one we saw in this episode was Billy, but that doesn't mean she wasn't feeding those old people to the other reapers, but it might have just been Billy. But, so I was like, okay. Cause I was wondering, I was like, do you have something else planned? Especially because that lady's like, oh, it's such a shame. You lost your brothers. You lost your mom. Like, oh, like, you know, they're always with you. And then obviously for Cleo, it's like, yeah, that's the sucky part. But obviously we catch up with Doc and Dallas who are locked up. BBD, it's like, oh, eventually you'll come to realize that this is the only way. Basically, it's been a usurp of power to a certain extent because home dude Graham, who kind of runs things, he's kind of upper management to a certain extent, I guess, in a specific unit, but now it's like, well, he's kind of taken over and made himself like top dog, at least of here right now. So he ends up killing Dallas because like, oh, we already have one of Dallas's species, so we don't need you. You would think with what you got planned, you would take whatever soldiers you can get, but I guess it's also to put people in line and be like, yeah, we'll kill you if necessary, but we'd rather not. And it's like, oh, we're going to need a vampire like you, Doc. So a lot of interesting aspects on that front because we kind of find out what their whole deal is. Essentially, it's like BBD has spent so long trying to put down monsters that it's like not realizing like, wait, we need them. Like, we've been killing our soldiers for the upcoming war and battle. Like, we need to, you know, be using it. The best battle against a monster or a demon is to use other monsters and demons. Obviously, Doc manages to get out and get away from the guard that's transporting, because the guard's like, I don't really know what's going on. He meets up with Jeremy as well as others. So it's not just the demons being locked up, it's humans, because humans are going, it's like, well, we need this arc that not only arc out the demons, but they're also going to need food. We need to kind of keep them satiated, which is also effed up that you're willing to feed not just humans in general, which is bad enough, but fellow BBD agents and, people like Jeremy, using them as food. But obviously it was so nice. I felt it was, when Mercedes showed up, you're like, oh yeah, Mercedes, we haven't seen you in a hot minute. And it's just like, and she was talking about hiding. The fact is, when stuff went down at Amon's, and she was like, it's like, I try to tell them I'm a human, because she's like, what kind of demon has a rack like this? And then all three, Jeremy, her, and Doc, all say Kate. It's like, well, that's true, which we have not seen Kate since the beginning of this season. So I'm assuming she's somewhere here. That must mean they don't have her anymore. Like, something happened, because the fact is, they're willing to keep Doc. That means they don't have a vampire. That meant they don't have a vampire, so something happened to Kate in that regard. Like, we never found out whatever happened to her, so I'm assuming, I guess she meant, I feel like I vaguely remember them talking about maybe she managed to escape. I don't remember. Because the last time we saw her in the show was the train at the beginning of the season. But, assuming they don't have her because, like I said, maybe she did escape and I just don't remember. But if they have, because they got rid of Dallas because they already have one of his species, so that means they're not doing the whole Noah Ark thing of keeping two. At least that's what that's implying. So that means they only have one vampire, that being Doc, meaning they don't have Kate. Like I said, if you remember, do correct me if it's like, oh, Kate managed to escape, or maybe they said what happened to Kate, but I don't remember from the first half of the season them talking about whatever happened to Kate. So if you do, let me know in the comments down below. But poor Mercedes, dude, it's just like, she's like, oh, I know someone that's a janitor, like, who has connections to, like, people higher up in the government, and they won't let you do what you do, and Mercedes gets shot. I'm like, no! I was like, that sucks. After everything Mercedes been through, we thought she was dead before. She had her face ripped off. She eventually got her face fixed. Obviously, we saw her earlier in the season kicking it at Amos, pretending to be a vampire so she could kick it there. And it's like, we brought Mercedes back just to kill her? No! And apparently, since it's near the end of everything, it's like we're doing that. Because it's like, not only Mercedes, we did it to my boy Casey too, but come on. It's even more effed up considering, like, everything that happened to Mercedes. Come on, son. Don't do this after everything that's happened to Mercedes, after all she's been through, literally being the only survivor of her family. I mean, God, that sucks. Oh, that's so heartbreaking. Hopefully it's like, oh, she's just wounded and she's not dead. Probably is. I hope not. I was like, no! Mercedes was coming through. She was helping and everything. It's like, oh, I'm gonna bust you guys out. Oh, they show up and Home Dude shoots her. I was like, I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not the end of that. I hope Mercedes okay. I hope. Probably not. She's probably not. Oh, that's so depressing. It's crazy with this whole BBD thing, because I get where they're coming from, but they're also at a point where they're just like, yeah, we're kind of taking over things right now because, like, this is kind of the end-all be-all, and it's like, purgatory's not worth keeping. Like, we've tried to fight back everything, we failed. We tried to contain the fog, we failed. Like, it's just, this town is doomed, so we're going to move on to the next. Like, obviously, there's still a war to fight on many different fronts, and obviously this is just one front. We're just going to have to pull back and just let this front be overtaken, essentially. So there's that. And obviously, there's a whole conversation about going inside the fall. They need Casey to help them. Which I love the whole thing of, like, yeah, because it's like, yeah, we wouldn't need you if you had mapped out the fall, because we know you've been mapping it out. And he was like, yeah, but they can't get to it if it's all in here. And then, like, Rachel's like, who is they and it? And Wynonna goes, and it's like, all right, he's like super high. And it's like, all right, but Casey's like, only one of us is I can only take one of you with me because it's already going to be confusing enough in there. So I can't keep track of multiple people. And it's like, Nicole and Wynonna go at it about who's going in. And it's like, no, I'm gonna go in. It's like, yeah, she's my sister, yeah, but she's my future wife. Well, if it was legal to marry my sister, then I would have done it a long time ago. So check your privilege, Hot Wheels. And it's like, dude, it's my equipment. I'm the one that knows how to work it. Well, I know how to work Casey. What does that even mean? It means that we had this whole mind meld thing ever since we cooked chili together for freedom. And it's like, and Rachel and him like fist bump. It's like, dude. But I love that it's like, no, you're gonna let me do this, Wynonna, because I had to wait home alone for 18 months for you to come back with Waverly. It's my turn to go in and save her. And obviously Wynonna understands what this means for Nicole. So fine, you go in there, save our girl. But sadly, things played out the way they did. It's like, no, it's like, Casey, no. He died, and even Rachel being like, we need to give him a proper burial, but for Wynonna, it's like, we don't have time. Nicole, are you okay? Luckily, Nicole got pushed out on the other side of the fog, but it's like, Jolene is back. They now know this, and it's like, damn it, what do? We have to go in there. This demon's been hunting Waverly since she was born, so what do we, so we can't bury Casey right now, but for Rachel, it's like, he's our friend, like, and kind of later on, it's like, is this what it's like for you? And for Wynonna, it's like, yeah, like watching the people, watching so many people you consider friends, family even, die. It's the hard part of this job. And it's like, of course, that's going to drive you a little insane, especially on top. And it's something, that's a conversation between Waverly and Jolene. And it's something I brought up was the whole thing of, even killing the revenants took its toll on Wynonna, but it's just, I think in her mind, it's like, whatever I gotta do to protect the people I care about. I've lost too many people along the way. There's been too much bloodshed, and it's like, if I have to spill more blood, no matter how much blood I have to have on my hand, it's going to be on me to protect the people. Which obviously Jolene's using that against Waverly by being like, your sister's had so much blood on her hands to protect you, like, you won't even lift a finger. It's like, your sister is the one that, it's like, you have the power to be a hero, but it's like, yeah, she's like, oh, you're a damsel in distress. She's like, no, I'm not a damsel in distress. Like, obviously, Waverly has kicked some ass in the past as well. She continues to do so, but the way Jolene's trying to make her feel bad, it's like, you've sat on the sidelines. Is it because you're really a damsel in distress, or do you choose not to carry the hero's burden because you look at what your sister's going through, and what do? You cuddle up with Nicole in your arms because you get to have your happily ever after because you don't have to bear the brunt of being the hero, It's like, on some level, maybe you're this is your way to kind of get back at your sister because she was the chosen one. Because your entire life, you've always wanted to be special. Because, that's actually where things started. Because she wanted to be the Earp heir, and for it to be Wynonna kind of bugged her because she's the one that did all the research. She knew the things and this and that. Like, Wynonna just kind of flying by the seat of her pants. Waverly's the one that knew everything there was to know about, the curse as well as the revenant. So she's the one that did the most research. So she kind of felt like she should have been the Earp heir. Like I said, I just thought that was like an interesting thing. Like I said, Jolene was just kind of trying to pick at the dark seeds that were already there. And I guess they were already there on some level to Waverly, and she knew that. It's like, oh, once again, we're basically sisters, from one sort of sister to another, like, trying to pick it, like, because even her knowing, like, some of the things she knows, it's like, I guess their connection, it was still strong enough for her to kind of see everything Waverly's going through, like, or maybe being near Waverly kind of let her kind of peek into Waverly's subconscious to kind of know. She knows Waverly on a level that no one else does, to be able to kind of pick and prod at some of her, maybe her own personal insecurities and like her own dark spots to be able to awaken that. Like, obviously it was all for the purpose of doing what she ultimately ends up doing to Waverly. Because obviously there's a whole thing of like, all right, we're going to need Jeremy's help. He's been working on a cure. And obviously when Wynonna goes to Black Badge, because obviously they want her to abandon the town because it's like, hey, you're going to be one of our greatest assets in this fight. But obviously Wynonna is like, I'm not going to abandon my sister. I'm not going to abandon this entire town. I fought tooth and nail against so many big baddies that protect this town. I'm not just going to abandon it and my family, so she's ready to lock and load and ready to fight. But she at first was going to take Jeremy because it's like she can only take Jeremy or Doc, but she decides to take Jeremy. But then she decides not to take either one. She tries to make her apologies for Doc. It's like, I will come back for you. I'm sorry for so much. And decides to take Cleo because Cleo has a Reaper, and the Reaper will be an easier thing to follow into the fogged after Jolene. So that kind of sucks because it's like, once again, her desperation to save Waverly goes above anything else, and it's like kind of leaving them behind because you're taking Cleo amongst anyone. It's like, wait, and even Rachel being like, wait, you left our friends behind to bring her. It's like, yeah, it has our best chance of helping find our way through using Jolene's hair that your boy Casey, R.I.P., ended up snatching off of Jolene, and they used that to set up the whole using a Reaper, which Rachel was like, it's not going to be Billy, right? Ends up being Billy anyway. And obviously Wynonna is able to kind of follow him through. He attacks Jolene, but Jolene ends up killing him in the process, which is like, there was probably no reversing it. So honestly, killing him is probably the kindest thing, because that way he's not stuck forever as a Reaper. I mean, we don't know what death as a Reaper looks like, whether his soul is like fully free or not, whatever the case may be. Maybe they went over that earlier in the season. I don't remember. I don't think they really went over the specifics of how that whole thing works. So it's kind of sad, because obviously Wynonna also didn't be like, oh, pick a different Reaper. Like, don't pick Billy, even though Rachel was like, don't let it be Billy, you know. But to be fair, that like I said, I don't know if she has access to any other Reapers, or whether Billy's the only Reaper they have left, because obviously she killed her mom. But I'm fairly sure, like, yeah, she was feeding. Yeah, she definitely has other Reapers, so I guess it was just her, you know, obviously for Cleo, she said goodbye, but I think this is also her way of being like, because she knows there's no way to save her brother, so for her, it's like, this might be, in her own way, it might be her way of, like, giving her brother peace, which is like, go in there, best of luck. If you end up dying, cool, I'm fine with it either way, because I don't care anymore, so. Like I said, I thought she would have had bigger machinations, but apparently not. But, luckily, Wynonna got there in time, but Jolene pushes her out into the fog. Still doesn't have Peacemaker, sadly. Which, that was also an interesting thing, too. Like, Waverly tried to pick up Peacemaker, but it burned her as well. So it's like, she's no longer worthy, you know? So, which I'm curious, like, where that might potentially go in the long run. Whether or not it'll ever do that to Wynonna in the end after all that she's done. I mean, maybe, you know, it's just like Jenny brought up last episode. It's like, yeah, that psychotic gun is your master. So, like, for it, it's like, Wynonna gives it, like, maybe it's kind of, you know, got the thrill of killing as well. So now it's like, oh, Wynonna's going to be putting down monsters and demons. I'm getting what I want, so she's definitely worthy. Like, you know, it's the thing of Peacemaker might have initially seemed like it's all good, but now it just, like, the price for using it kind of runs steep now, it seems like, you know, so that's why I'm wondering whether or not Peacemaker is going to be something you're going to want to keep around. You know, it might just be too intoxicating, and it might just kind of put you in a position where you have to kill all the time, so might not be the Peacemaker that it once was. Who knows, maybe, I don't know. I'm curious to see if there ends up being kind of a storyline kind of around that, in particular where things are heading, because all of that finally made Waverly kind of given to her dark side, and it's like, yeah, now do what you're destined to do, like basically destroy the world. And it's like, okay, I will, but you won't be there to witness it. And she kills Jolene, so, and her skin starts to morph into what she is. That's why I'm like, that's so interesting to see. And she walks through the fog, I guess because she's embracing what she is. So, because that's interesting. As an angel, you would have thought it wouldn't affect, but I guess like, she never fully embraced her angelhood. So I guess she never awoke into it fully, only in spurts when her powers would come into play. But that's about it. I guess now that she's a full-blown angel, or fully embracing what she is, that the fog doesn't work on her. At first, like, it seemed like Wynonna, like, fell inside of it, but then it seemed like it receded. So part of me was wondering, like, is Waverly absorbing the fog? It didn't seem like it, but maybe, I don't know, or maybe just she pulled it away enough so that Wynonna would be fine. But it's like, yep, just stay out of my way, Earp, and let me do what I'm supposed to do. So this might sadly end in a situation where Wynonna might, because even Waverly was saying, like, get Peacemaker, put Jolene down, and then stop me if you have to. So they might be putting Wynonna in another position where she might have to put another sister down, you know? that might be the direction we're heading with this. That'd be the saddest damn thing ever if that ends up being the case. So hopefully they'll be able to stop Waverly without having to stop her with, what's coming. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where things go. Sadly, only 2 episodes left. It's going to be crazy to see ultimately where all of this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.